All
And
right.
and
And
just like that, we are live. How is everybody doing in central Pennsylvania and a
Friday, right?
bigger reach than that? It's finally Friday, free again. How about it? I am. But does that matter? Like I have a Facebook friend. She is the greatest. Christina Irene. She posts and she's like, according to the post-apocalyptic calendar, it's Thursday. Time to check your belly button for Lent, or it's whatever. Like she just is like, it's Wednesday. Wash behind your ears and rotate the tires on your car. It's like she has these like funny things, like, but it's true. I mean, because we're not going to the office, because we see our family all the time, and because we're not going to church, like, do days really even mean anything anymore?
They all run together for us. I don't even know what day I'm waking up to anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I think they put some legislation through that we're just going to call it day from now on.
Right, exactly. Hey, so listen, I'm going to introduce you guys. First of all, your hosts are Judah Hoover with Slatehouse Group Property Management and Josh Weidman. Josh is with Hard Money Bankers of Central PA. If you guys ever have any questions, comments, or feedback on this show, we would love to hear them. And we would love your ideas for guests and topics. And drop us questions. We will be potentially taking them during the call. We try to do this every day at 12 o'clock for about half an hour. Because we have Chris and Mel, I mean, I would buckle in, people. We're probably going to be here for about 40 minutes today because I know these guys personally and I know the great content that we have. And we just look to interview interesting people doing interesting things in the central PA or southeastern PA region, because that's kind of where our audience is right now. But we definitely talk to some people in the mid-Atlantic and nationwide from time to time. I've known Chris and Mel for, I don't know, a year, but it feels like 5. I mean, you guys, I feel like I'm kindred spirits with you guys. Hopefully you're willing to admit to the public that you feel the same. I have a tremendous amount of love and admiration and respect for you guys. Chris was a New York City firefighter for a long time, or was it just up in New York?
I was born in New York. I was born in the Bronx. I was a firefighter here.
You were a firefighter here. I gotcha. So, Mel, you have a medical background, correct?
Yeah, I'm I'm still a registered nurse.
Oh, an RN, not a LPN. Let's play nurse.
No, I have a full bachelor's degree that I'll never use again.
You didn't, Chris. I'm sure you never heard that joke. LPN, let's play nurse before. That's good. Yeah, absolutely.
I use something similar. I call it LBR, life before real estate.
Love that. I love that.
You guys, what I love the most about your background and story, Chris, is neither one of you really has a super like sales background or business background or marketing background, but like your growth has just been meteoric, but also I can tell you guys right now, you've built a very sustainable business. You've built a very practical business, and you guys are not just flashes in the pan. I love seeing what you guys are doing, but like, kind of take me through, like, as way of introduction. I think your numbers speak the best. Like last year, you did 25 deals. The year before that, it was 10. The year before that, it was 3. The year before that, it was 1. Is that about correct?
Yeah, that's just about perfect. Yeah.
And I know that this year you guys were hoping to do 50. Obviously, COVID has put maybe a shakeup in that plan. But also, you've done maybe 5 to 10% of those deals have been wholesale deals, but by and large, you identify properties, negotiate with the seller, buy the property in the name of your entity, you manage the rehab, then you list the property and you sell it. So like, you do it all, including even sometimes swinging the hammers. If you guys are followed on Facebook or YouTube, I see Chris there with his torn off shirts, working up a sweat sometime. I like what Ron LeGrand says: anybody who likes to work on houses needs therapy. But you guys actually do almost everything. Obviously, you have a pretty big contracting crew and selling the properties as well. So you do it all. Kind of give me, as way of introduction, Tell us what I missed there on who Chris and Mel McGeady are.
That was pretty spot on. As far as your Facebook stalking, I feel like you're 100% honest. Yeah, so we got into the business. You're right. It was just under 5 years ago, and we primarily started. Well, we thought we were going to wholesale. That was what seemed sexy at the moment. We didn't really identify with that as much as we did rehabbing. We really enjoy that part of it. And where we make out pretty good now is the way we have our business structured is we really did split it 50-50. We split it in half. I do a lot of the sales and the lead management. And then when we get something under contract that we're going to take on as a project, Mel does the budgeting and the rehab construction.
I love that gender bender aspect of it. Typically a husband and wife team, you would think the guy is the one managing the contractors. I love that Mel takes no gruff from nobody, and she's the one actually out there keeping the big burly contractors in line. She is a force to be reckoned with.
Well, actually, if I can be honest, you get more bees with honey, so I'm not hard on them. But I get a lot of respect, and I think that as long as I respect them, they do respect me. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting things done your way, but there's no reason why you can't negotiate and understand why they need to do things another. So I love my contractors, so I'm very open-minded with them.
Right.
I got a question for you here. Chris, we started touching on this before the call, but I didn't get Mel's take on it. You don't have a construction background. And I mean, yesterday we were talking about anybody that wants to do a rehab, it is a very steep learning curve, and it can be really expensive if you don't know what you're doing. So how do you go from, no rehab experience to now, flipping 35 houses and, the vast majority are, 30 plus rehabs during a year?
Go ahead, you can tell that.
Well, I think that the one thing people need to remember is you're not going to start tomorrow and do 30 houses your first year.
Sure.
So all of it is the school of hard knocks for me. I mean, I can walk into a house now and identify a lot of problems that I couldn't 4 years ago. Sure. And the best advice I can give someone that has no construction background is to just take it one house at a time. And when you're ready to grow and when it's right for you and you're comfortable, then those things will come easier. But you have to set aside a bigger contingency in the beginning, because for the things that you miss, you want to make sure that you have that money set aside for those things. And even now, I don't portray to myself as some, expert, and you never miss anything, because how often are we walking these properties before we buy them? You're walking them once, maybe twice, and then you start ripping things out and you find things you never saw. So I would highly, highly recommend that you put that contingency aside, especially when you're starting. So it doesn't matter if you miss something. I mean, unless it's detrimental, but really, as long as that money's set aside, you're usually really putting enough of a buffer for yourself to fix it.
So let's ask a question there. I've managed a whole bunch of rehabs, and so has Josh, and helped other people do the same. Would you say that a 10% contingency, is that what you use, or do you have a different number that you use? And what number do you use? Here's a two-part question. What number do you use for your contingency, and what would you recommend somebody who's done less than 3 rehabs they use for their contingency?
I think we'll give different answers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The smaller rehabs, like if you expect a $30,000 rehab, in my opinion, 10% is not enough. Especially if you're new. And a lot of people like to say 10%, maybe 15%. If it's me, if I'm new, I'm going to recommend maybe for a $30,000 rehab, you do $5,000, maybe $8,000 you're setting aside. The bigger rehabs we've done $120,000 rehabs too. And maybe 10% is too much. So
what percentage of your deals are those smaller, more cosmetic rehabs? And how often are you going and doing a gut rehab and replacing everything?
We're not really doing a gut too often, but as far as the smaller, like $30,000 rehabs, it's a very small percentage of what we've done in the past year. I'd say we probably average more 50 to 70,000 in our rehab.
Yeah.
Maybe not cut down to the studs, but a lot of the properties that we find in our area need almost everything.
But they're like, we also do bigger houses a lot of times.
Right.
When you say bigger houses, how many bedrooms and what square footage roughly are you talking about?
3 to 4 beds over, well,
between 22,000 and maybe 2,500.
yeah, that's about ours.
So those are bigger houses. Those are like one step up from entry level housing. You know,
but I just like to make a point though. We live on the line where I don't know if everybody knows where Morgantown is, but my backyard is in Berks County, and we live in Chester County. And my neighbor's house is in Lancaster County. So if you know the difference between Berks County homes and Chester County homes, you know, we could do a standard rehab in Chester County. You're putting 100,000 into it, where in Berks County, the houses that we typically buy are a lot smaller. So we have a pretty big range of what we buy.
On the resales too. I mean, our first time home buyer markets is not out of the ordinary to be 350, 375 in Chester County, which doesn't translate over to the other two counties.
Yeah.
Right. Because Chester County is a suburb of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a top 5 metro market in the U.S. And so therefore that, you know, kind of trickles down the further west you go. But much of Chester County is definitely would be considered a Philly suburb. So
before you move on, I'd like to actually resurface a point. You kind of breezed by it, and I don't want to do that in the introduction, where you said the sustainability has happened for us in the 3 or 4 years. The sustainability really comes with purpose. We were 1,000% invested into learning what we were going to do, implementing it, taking action right away, over and over again, failing along the way, embracing all the failures that we've had. So although we can sustain now and grow and scale off of that, it really came with intent and purpose from the get-go.
Yeah.
Chris, let me say something about that, because I'm 40. I bought my first rental property when I was 22. I've had a hard money fund. I've been a mortgage broker. I've run a real estate investor club. Like I am heavily plugged into the careers of a lot of investors. And I see people make one of two mistakes. Either they learn and never put anything into practice, or they take action too quickly. And I'm usually of the advice that people should take action quicker, but there is such a thing as taking action too quickly. You saying what you just said made me realize what it is that you and Mel have done successfully. You have taken action and learned at the appropriate balance each step along the way. I really think that has been one of the things that has led to your success. Not being afraid to learn as you go, and not being afraid to also move forward before you have complete knowledge. And that's a risky thing, but you need to be able to do both at the same time. And that's what's led to the stability that I think you guys have in your business.
Exactly right. And I especially, and you probably agree with this, especially on the construction side, asking questions. It doesn't always have to be monetary questions. You know, maybe it is. How much does that cost? Well, why does it cost that much? Do we have to do it that way? Are there other alternatives to doing that?
What would you do if it was in your house, Mr. Contractor? What would you recommend? Are there other options out there?
Yeah, so just asking questions along the way helps you learn and grow and plan for the next time. You know, because whatever you're planning for this particular project, if you have those side conversations and you realize that it can be done just a little bit differently, and now you move on to your next project and you're that much better for it and can plan.
Right.
When you transitioned from your first property to, or maybe not your first property, but your first few properties where you were going one off and, you know, maybe one project at a time, to those multiple projects at any given time, what was the most challenging part of that? I mean, were you using a general contractor at the time and, you know, and kind of spreading him across a couple jobs, or was this something that you had planned for and were ready to jump in?
I'll tell you my side of that. The year we moved forward and decided to scale, I lost, or my best contractor and myself parted ways. And it was right before we bought 3 properties. And then I had to scramble to find some people. So I ended up stretching. I actually found out my roofer does more than roofing, and he has been amazing since. But what happens is when you start to scale is that if you don't have those people on your bench, I found I was in a really, really stressful situation. I wasn't ready for it. So, but it ended up working out. I mean, I worked through it. I found some people, but I think that when you're married to one contractor in the beginning, for me, it was hard for me to find other people. And I just recommend that you are always you're always interviewing contractors and always talking to them. And one way that you can introduce them into being a part of your team is maybe just giving them one job here, one job there, see how their quality of work is, rather than throwing them into a full project and you find out at the end that they do terrible work. But for me, I mean, it's just stressful in that way.
On that note, do you use general contractors, or do you break it down and you're actually the general contractor on the project?
Yeah, I prefer to be the general contractor. I have done it both ways. I do have one gentleman that actually, he does manage my projects very well, and he has his own electrician and a plumber. But what I find is I lose control of my budget when that happens.
Yep.
So I don't really like doing that, because I as everybody knows, when you're flipping, you're on such a strict budget. You have to be very, very careful. And then if you're getting invoiced at the end and it's suddenly, 5, 6, 7,000 more than you expected, then that's just going to blow up the whole thing. And I don't deal well with those kind of invoices. So, so then, so now I've decided I need to, I had two different people. I had that guy. I had another guy that didn't want to be general contracting, which was fine with me. I wanted to have that control. I think just like everything else, I've learned that I know what I like to do. So for me, I like to manage.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I mean, before I joined Torn Money Bankers, I was part of a turnkey investment company in the Philly area, and it always amazed me that if you break down these jobs into small enough intervals, it's pretty manageable. Mm-hmm. But when you look at a 45 or 50 or $100,000 rehab, and you say $100,000, any contractor in the world can say, yeah, I can get it done, or most, right? I can get it done. But then you realize, hey, the cost is actually $150, and halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, there's no money left, and it's like, what the heck happened? Whereas if you break it down, you might be able to get that same job done for $95,000 instead of $120, $150. But I always thought, dealing with contractors is a challenge, but when you find the good ones, it's amazing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, my dad's.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, my dad's been a painting contractor for a long time, and one of the very first lessons, I probably wasn't even double digits, and my dad taught me the lesson. He said a lot of painting contractors are very good painters, but they're very bad business people, and it's why they're just painting contractors. That's why they're standalone. And so one of the services, one of the benefits, one of the things that you offer a contractor as an investor is a budget. You give them the budget. You give them the timeline. You keep them on track. You tell them what we are not going to exceed, because they're excellent at their craft, but there's very few people out there who can take a check for $100,000 and actually get all of the facets of $100,000 rehab done.
Yeah, when we introduced that part of it and we started to award our budgets, a lot of our contractors loved it because they didn't have to think about it, and it came down to just being a labor budget. I orchestrate all of the delivery of all the material, and then in that way, that allows me to find the best deal on material.
Yeah,
sure.
So do you tend to buy from the big box stores and just look for deals, or are you looking for, I mean, not to go down a rabbit hole here, but that's a big part of a rehab is like getting cool stuff that's not going to cost you $1 million, right?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's interesting is I anally shop around for things, and there's really not a big difference in prices. And I know that with Lowe's, if you can buy all of your stuff at once, and they'll put it into a bid room and get you an additional, $3-5 off. And then if you have a credit card, you can also take an additional percentage off. So at the end of the day, buying from Lowe's or Home Depot or whoever that might be could ultimately end up being the best place to get your material. But as far as with competition in prices, I think the internet has kind of driven that to an even playing field. It almost doesn't really matter. But if you get, you have relationships with other vendors, usually you can negotiate, an additional percentage off, no matter who it is. So I have those relationships with cabinet companies as well. So it's
That's
just
great.
something that you can keep that in mind, and you don't have to be doing 30 flips to negotiate. You just ask.
Right.
But exactly, it's amazing what you get when you ask, right? So you guys were on with Jim Zaspel the other day, correct, on a podcast there, and one thing that he taught me was the simple line: "Is that the best you can do?"
Right. That's around the Grand Lag.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable line. Yeah.
I use that line when ordering pie at a diner. I order that line when I'm checking in at a motel. Is that the best you can do? Just ask people. Or when people are delivering. And so one of the things I love about Chris, your and Mel's story is, like, as you were learning NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and kind of the Sandler method of sales and everything like that, is you talk about how you were using it on Mel and she didn't even know. Like, a lot of sales is just a lot of negotiation. It's just simple stuff that people don't even necessarily notice, and it doesn't come across as slimy if you just do it right. And yeah, when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, hey, I'm doing a $30,000 rehab. Who do I talk to about putting together a budget for that? And if it's your first time, they will probably say, okay, well, did you also think about this? And did you also think about this? And what else are you looking to do? Well, great, we can get you a price on that. And they after you do a couple of them, you'll have a specific account rep that you deal with exclusively, and it's amazing what they're willing to do for you.
Yeah. Well, put yourself in the receiving end of that question, right? It makes you stop for a second and second guess yourself. Like, is that the best I can do? I'm not sure. Let me think about this.
Right.
Now, the reason that our business is split is because Chris is so good at sales. So we had an experience in which I was removed from doing sales ever again because we were in an appointment, and I messed up the whole appointment. And then I decided, that's it. I'm not going to go to the appointments with you anymore. And Chris said I wasn't allowed. So.
That sounds really dramatic.
But it's important to know what you're good at.
Well, and if I know that story correct, it's because Chris said, Chris brought it down to putting them on the spot and asking for a number. And the most difficult part of a salesman, and people don't even believe this about me, but I know when to shut up. And there's times when you ask a question, you zip your lips, and the first one to talk loses. And what's funny is Mel was the one who broke.
Yeah, I mean, we sat there in that awkward silence for it probably felt like an hour, but it was maybe a minute. And she's like, well, why don't you take the night and think about it? Call us tomorrow. Of course, I'm still waiting for that phone call. That was 3 years ago.
Right, exactly.
I don't like awkward silence.
Well, when you do in-home sales, and when you do, one call, one close sales, it really is. There's certain types of sales that if everybody says they'll think about it, they never do. Everyone says we'll call you back tomorrow, they never do. You just need to understand that they are being polite to get you out of their house, and it just isn't going to happen. I mean, we do not have time today, Josh, but we need to get Mel on specifically to talk about how she manages contractors, what she does with her budget and everything like that. And Chris can kind of tag along, sure. And we need to have a whole other call with Chris and just talk about what you do in the sales process. I had Chris, he's spoken at meetups for me and things like that. And he is excellent at, from the time the motivated seller opens the door to the time they are signing your offer for 50 cents on the dollar, that is a script. It doesn't feel like a script. It is an Oscar-winning performance that you go through that can't feel like an act. And there's a way to do it and close deals, and there's a way to do it and waste a bunch of your time. And Chris, Chris said this. He says, Chris doesn't say a lot, and he's a kind of a humble guy. But he said, oh, I'm super competitive. And I heard other people were closing 3 out of 10 deals. And I said, I'm doing that good or better.
Well, I can add to that comment because you're right. I'm extremely competitive. And where Mel was talking about scaling before, when we first scaled and had that disagreement with the contractor, was ironically right after she challenged me. I think it was in February or March. We were getting about a contract or two a month. And she's like, I could take more. And I was like, careful what you ask for because I'll get you more contracts. And she's like, give me more contracts. So we got 6 that month.
Great. That's great. Okay, so let's follow up on that. Where are you getting your leads from? I mean, are you going knocking doors?
Primarily ours is direct mail. We send postcards out.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, you have to send. I think in this competitive market, obviously we've only been doing this for 4 years, and I can't speak for what it was like 5-6 years ago, but you know, we're sending a large volume in order to get the calls back. So, you know, it fits in our budget and it works and we get enough out of it. So that's kind of why we've continued with it. I know some people are changing gears, but I'm kind of sticking to that path. So we continue.
Good. Let them change gears. Let them stop sending out cards.
Yeah.
Right. You'll be the only one in the
dabbled a little bit in the Facebook advertising. Haven't had much luck with it, but I'm trying to take a different approach, and it seems to be working. If I can track that for a little bit and it's working, I'd be happy to share that in the future.
Yeah, great.
That's great. What do you guys think about the current market? What do you think about when we come out of this market? What are you doing? Have in the past 5 weeks, have you gotten anything under contract? Have you listed anything for sale? What's going on right now with Chris and Mel McGeady?
So we have gotten one contract where I conducted that appointment over the phone. We haven't slowed our marketing down, and as to be expected, the volume of the calls coming in have slowed down as well. But like you just said, other people are completely pulling out of that marketing source, so we're not going to stop. We're going to keep that message out there. We changed our message a little bit in the last round that we put out to let people know that we're still willing to have phone conversations, you know, and when we're on the phone with them, you know, you set that expectation up front where, you know, the number that we talk about may be differently than if I saw it in person, unless they can show me pictures or a video and we can kind of run through an appointment almost like we're sitting here right now. They can walk around the house and I can see things. So just getting creative just to keep the ball moving forward has been one of our strategies. It's been slower, but just recently in the past few days, our phone calls have increased. And I don't know if that's because the message we put out there, I'm hoping it is. So we'll see where that takes us moving forward. I like meeting with people. I can't wait till we can meet in person again, but you got to do what you got to do in the present times. On the sales side of it, post rehab, we do have 2 listed on the market where we've tried some virtual showings, a little bit of a higher price point. They're in Chester County, not moving as well. I've heard some success stories about virtual showing, so just try at this point. We got to try something.
And
well, it's tough.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, with evaluating current contracts moving forward, we're assuming a 10% discount on the list just to be safe. So we're running our numbers 10% lower than where we think they are.
It's funny. I just read something this morning about the National Association of Realtors just put out some numbers today. And even though there's record low inventory, a lot of people pull their properties off the market. People aren't really moving with their price points. And I think that once we get out of this shutdown, we're going to have a boost of sales. And I mean, maybe even a small increase in property, prices, because there's going to be so much competition for what's out there. But I guess the question on our end, what I've been kind of thinking about is what's going to happen once that push is kind of gone. And, we kind of realize what the effects of this shutdown have been, right?
Here's the interesting part about that. Do you have something to add to that? Let me just say this. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm fine.
Well, I got an idea. I got to come out right away with it. It happened so quickly. Where we operate as real estate investors is very measured. Where we come into a property and we take what the ARV is, right? We take data from just a small window of time and back off of that to get our buy price. What's interesting is when you just shut everything down like a light switch, those numbers still stand but where they're going to stand 3 months from now, we don't know. So where we're really hyper focused on sold prices, you almost have to be also just as focused on list prices now and see what the difference in those is compared to what they would have been 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think just the only reason we are taking the discount initially is just to protect the lender's money, because I'm honestly probably going to list higher anyway. But I think just to be safer, I mean, you're still going to make money at the discount is the whole point.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Cool.
plan for the worst, or and hope for the best, and that just makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that speaks to is part of the reason why you have the stability and you guys are more than a flash in the pan and you guys are going to test the time is you are protecting your private money lenders and hard money lenders that are partners of yours. They take a big risk as well, and they count on you doing business in the future, and to look out for them and protect them just speaks volumes. And they see that. Your hard money lenders see when you are reacting and making intelligent decisions moving forward. The other thing that I would say is, I've said this on other calls, and I guess I just want your response here, Chris and Mel, to this is, I think we're coming up on a time where real estate it's always been location, location, location. But what's going on in central PA might be different than what's going on in New York, might be different than what's going on in Tennessee, might be different than what's going on in Kentucky and California. And obviously it's going to be different than national averages, because as states open up, they're going to open up at different paces and they're going to open up differently. So we need to not necessarily be scared or excited when we see data that is a national average. For good or bad, national averages mean nothing to our local market.
No, I agree with that 100%. I mean, even if you just took two states and put them side by side, we may seem a little grim in the beginning compared to somebody else because we've had construction shut down and real estate. So there's other states where they're still conducting real estate transactions and their realtors are considered essential. So they're going to pull ahead data-wise here for the short term.
Yeah. So are you guys excited, Mel? Because I think that over the last 5 years, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell you the last 5 years, it's been the hardest ever to find contractors, not just general contractors, but specialty contractors. Are you aware of, or do you agree or disagree that contractors are going to be easier to find moving forward? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think initially, but I think just like everything else, when things open up, I think we're going to return pretty close to normal. But I mean, I could see that being the case, right off the bat, and then maybe being able to negotiate prices a little bit more. I mean, I'm just looking forward to getting back to work. I mean, we don't need a big team right now. So I feel like, in terms of getting more contractors, I mean, that would be great, but I think we're going to be fine.
I would almost say that, yes, in the beginning, there would be a honeymoon period because, I mean, how attractive would it be moving forward? Well, I heard today, I don't know if it's true or not, I haven't put any fact to it, but that contractors will be back to work on the 1st. I hope that is true. And if it is, how attractive is it going to be to work in one of our vacant houses as opposed to a house that's being lived in?
Sure.
For obvious reasons. So in the beginning, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So you're excited to get back to work, Mel. You're sick of looking at Chris's ugly mug every day.
Yeah, I wish that was true, but we still share an office. No matter what,
Right.
We still have to be together.
So when you guys are blowing and going, I'm just curious. You guys are doing 30, 40. Your goal this year was 50. I hate how many books, tapes, and seminars are sold on lifestyle. But I'm just curious, like, what is your lifestyle like, you guys? Are you working 40, 60 hours a week, or are you guys going so recently from high demand careers to now high demand entrepreneurship? Talk to me about, do you guys like that flexibility, or isn't there flexibility, or what's a day in the life of Chris and Mel like, and what's your user experience like? Are you guys happy with this life you've built for yourself?
Absolutely. I am 100%. There are days, obviously, where it's a little more pressing than others. And there was probably a point in time last year where we traded a lot of our time to be just engrossed in the business. We started building a team at the end of last year. So there's 4 of us now. And that's been great because it's gotten some stuff off of our plate. We realize maybe it took us a little too long, but we realized where we're strong, where we're weak. So we hired to our weaknesses, and that's been a game changer. So we're starting to get some of our time back, and it's becoming more enjoyable. I feel like somebody might have a different answer to that. But
what are your thoughts, Mel? Well, also you have 3 girls. How old are your girls?
14, 10, and 5.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
actually, they're great, and they don't really bother us, and they're wonderful. I mean, we have them tied up in the basement, so that helps.
the same house for almost 8 weeks now. We have 2 dogs.
Number of them, right?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of my working schedule, I actually find that certain days of the week are just busier than others. Historically, as I've gone on, Mondays I'm pretty swamped. With everyone getting back to work. Usually Mondays are busy for me, and then it kind of tapers off as the week goes on. So I would say I could probably put together a good 40 hours I'm working, but it's definitely not 8-hour days. I mean, I'm stacked in the beginning and less at the end. So it's really not too bad.
That's awesome.
Most of my people are not idiots, and they can figure things out. And if they can't, we work through it. I mean, usually my answer is, you're the expert. So what do you think we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't give me the right answer, I'll go find it, because, maybe it comes down to money or whatever that may be. And they know that, like, if they feel like, I've had people that I've worked with where they say, this will probably cost this much. And I say, thanks, but I'm going to go to someone else, but I'm going to use you for something else. And they understand that. So
right.
I haven't had any bad relationships in that terms, but anyway, I hope I answered your question.
You absolutely did, and that's what we wanted to look for. We've been talking so much, COVID-19 and what's coming next, and everything like that. We haven't been touching much on lifestyle, and I love that you guys are a partner. I don't know of many. I know husbands and wives who are in the business together, but you guys are probably the biggest in the business together partnership that I can think of in Central PA. And I just think that's really awesome and very marriage affirming. And it just checks a lot of the Judah Hoover boxes for a whole bunch of reasons. I just think that's awesome.
I think it didn't happen on purpose. It definitely wasn't set like in the beginning, I'm doing this, you're doing that. It kind of came down to watching each other struggle and then deciding, okay, you're better at that, I'm better at this. We'll man our own things, and we're involved in them together, but not intently. Like, we kind of let each other do our thing. But if I need help, he's obviously going to help. He knows better, but but yeah, for the most part, it's just kind of the pieces sort of fell in place.
That's true. I mean, we just naturally set into our roles. If we rewind to day one, putting our first marketing message out there and getting that first phone call back, should be exciting, was frightening, right? So the first person that was brave enough to answer the phone and have that conversation set into the sales role.
Yeah.
Right. Well, guys, we've got to wrap this up. We've already been going for 38 minutes here, and we have covered. I cannot believe that the time has flown so quickly. This has been phenomenal. We are absolutely going to have both of you back on and highlight Mel on contracting and highlight Chris on marketing and the sales process. We are going to take a break for the weekend, and we are going to be back Monday at noon with another great call. I forget who we have scheduled for noon, Josh.
It's funny. We got a bunch of people on the schedule for next week and the following week, and I'm going to put together a schedule this weekend, or put it on a calendar so we can talk. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, we got to get that out there to everybody. Chris and Mel, you guys are welcome back anytime. We definitely want to have you guys back. This has been a phenomenal conversation, and I just want to tell you, Josh is a great hard money source. I'm a great property management source, and we definitely want to offer those services to you and to anybody who you run into. But just as active other investors in the market, we just have so much respect for the two of you. And if there's ever anything we can do, you just got to let us know. We're here
Thank
for
you
it.
so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks for having us on. This was fun.
I got to get my wife to watch this thing. I'm trying to convince her to get into the business with me, and she just hasn't crossed the line yet. So we'll see.
It makes the relationship interesting. So be careful what you wish for.
Interesting. Interesting. Did you hear that word, Josh?
I heard it.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a nice weekend out there, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.